Hey, welcome aboard for another session of the A Game. I'm Rob Akampor from the studios on the Jersey Shore. The man to my right. Well, some people recognize him, some people may not. But to further explain what he does for a living, CJ, can I have photo number 2, please? He's a part of this band. These are the guys from A Flock of Seagulls who'll be out on the road pretty much the entire summer, and we're getting into some of the dates. Yeah, the guy on the left there, the cute one. That's him. He's been playing drums for God probably since coming out of the womb, and it's been more than just A Flock of Seagulls. We're going to get it all into it. Kevin Rankin, thanks for stopping in, my friend.
I'm glad to be here, Rob. Thanks, man.
You got it. Funny story. Childhood friend of mine, Mike Del Buono, who's married to a friend of yours, Lori.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey sends me an email, and I think you've met Mike a few times. You know he's a little nuts. I can tell by the look. I'm like, yes, you know Mikey. All right. So he tells me, like, going, oh, wait a minute. I know the name because I try to stay in tune. Then I'm like, going, yeah, if he wants to come on. And then I'm realizing he's got a podcast. He's got all these, this is going to be a fun session. But so you and Lori go back to childhood. Is this what this is?
You know what? I still act like a child. I know, man.
So do I, but that's not a story.
Now, we were in college together, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I was 17, I think, when I met her, and she was working at a venue in Bozeman, Montana, where we were going to college. And so while she was a waitress at the club, my band was playing a lot of those gigs at the club, and then we had tons of classes together.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, was the club called the Cat's Paw?
That's the one. Yes, sir.
So you're in a band called what? Curious George? Was that the name of the band?
Spank the Monkey, baby. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, imagine if you guys got signed like, the copyright shit that we're gonna have to go through on that one.
Yeah, but everybody loved that book, right? So
we all did.
That was the initial branding thing, because everybody loved the book,
right.
And then we of course had to take like the dirty slant to it. Spank the Monkey was kind of like the slogan, where we had all of our merch had scantily clad gals spanking Curious George. So yeah, it was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll at that time, right? So
gotta love that.
Yeah.
Bozeman, Montana. Funny thing is, a buddy of mine is actually out on vacation in Western Montana as we speak, and I grabbed this photo number 9, CJ, and this is from where he is. I mean, I can't get over how gorgeous this must have been just growing up around there. Was it? I mean, does this photo do it any justice? Because every time I've heard that area, it's that if you love skiing, you want to get away from it all, spend a week out here, and it's one of the most peaceful environments you're ever going to find.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that I'm old, I completely understand it. When I grew up, I mean, I really grew up in a cabin out in an area just like that. We were the last people up in the woods in Bear Canyon outside of Bozeman, Montana. And I hated it. Our pipes would freeze all the time. The road was so narrow that you couldn't even plow it. So my dad's out snow blowing at 4 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, it was miserable. And then I realized when I got older that it was honestly the most beautiful sanctuary ever, and I would give anything to have that place back.
Right.
So.
And nowadays, I know you call Portland, Oregon, your home.
That's right.
Which is still not a bad place. I mean,
no.
it's a nice place to kind of, settle in, have a city atmosphere, but be away from it all, and just kind of have that sanction where you go, okay, when I'm off the road, I can come here and just kind of.
Yeah. I try to do it every day. Honestly, I live pretty close to a forest here, and we've got mountains an hour away. We've got the ocean, an hour and 20 minutes away. And so I was at the ocean on Saturday and spent the time there with my kid, my dog, and yeah, we really are fortunate to have everything here. The desert's 2 hours in another direction, so it's a good spot.
Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Your beginning. I'm going to go back. This has to be right around 2000, 2001. Now, Animotion had broken up. I mean, I knew they had their run in the 80s, and Room to Move becomes a top 10 hit. And literally a year later, boom, we're done. They disappear from the tracks. Now, from what I understand about the story, because me being a radio geek and having worked in the industry for a long time, there was a pop station, I believe, in Portland, Oregon, that was trying to get Animotion to kind of get back together.
Yeah.
Okay, you know where I'm going with
this. I do, yeah.
So this was actually a true story. So it was the station that kind of spurred Animotion to come back, and then you kind of came into the fray because of that, sort of.
Yeah. Alex Hart, who is the son, do you remember the band Paul Revere and the Raiders back in like the 60s? So they're from here. And Roger Hart, Paul Revere's manager, who was really a seminal part of that band, his kid, Alex Hart, worked in marketing at a radio station. And he got to know Bill Wadhams, the male singer of Animotion.
Right.
And they talked about the history. And Bill had a really successful band in Portland called Black Barrel at that point. And Alex said, wouldn't it be cool if you guys just reunited for maybe one gig? And so the members of that band of Animotion had all gone on to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guitarist had been with Rod Stewart for a long time. The keyboardist, most of his time was spent with Jose Feliciano.
Oh, wow.
But he's like the keyboardist on the Thriller record with Michael Jackson. And he's done it all, right? And quietly, he's like this rock star hero. And so the bass player and the girl singer in the band were married. They lived in Fresno.
Yeah, Astrid, right?
Astrid Plain, that's right. Yeah. And Charles was her husband, and they just kind of had packed it up. She was doing local gigs. And when this radio guy brought the band together, they really just brought Astrid, Bill, and then the Black Barrel Band that Bill had as the backing band. Mm-hmm. And they did this one gig at this venue here in Portland for a radio promotion. And it really was, I think, cathartic for them, because there was a tumultuous time after they broke up. The two lead singers, it was unfortunate, but that's what happens in a lot of bands. There was some bad blood. So when they got together, it was a bonding thing. They really connected. And the next thing you knew, the singer wanted to put together all the original members, and they got everybody together, but they couldn't track down their old drummer. And I don't know if you want me to tell you that story, but I mean, essentially, Bill had seen me play in some other local bands in Portland. They called me and one other friend. Actually, they called another friend and Dan Pred, the drummer from a band called Dan Reed Network that blew up from out here. Mm-hmm. They had been touring with like Bon Jovi and the Stones, and my buddy Dan said, "Oh, you got to call Kevin Rankin." So I was the first to respond to the call, and I met with Bill at this bar here in Portland, 2001, just I think the beginning of 2002, and we just clicked, man. It was like brothers. We sat and had coffee for hours, and the next thing you know, he said, "Yeah, there's just one gig. It's a gig. Happened to be on my birthday in October in Fresno. They were going to try this one-off thing, but they got all the original players back together." And at a rehearsal or at the sound check, the day of the gig, that guitarist I told you, Don Kirkpatrick, the guy that plays with Rod Stewart, he said, "Dude, where'd you find this drummer? This guy's a total rock guy. He brings kind of a kick to this band. We got to do more gigs with him." And the next thing you knew, they were just stacking up. Man, we did the very first Nike Run Hit Wonder, which I don't know if you know anything about that event, but Nike put on a gig it was 6 miles, 10K.
Oh, wow. No, I didn't know about this. Wow.
Each mile marker had a different band at it. And so it was based on the 80s, right? So they had A Flock of Seagulls. They had Missing Persons. They had CNC Music Factory. I remember them. More 90s. Stephen Pearcy from Rat was on that gig, and Animotion. And so there were like 250,000 people in LA running this event. And we're basically on a flatbed trailer playing Iran over and over. Obsession. Wasn't in Flock yet. No, we're playing.
Getting the bands confused, which is understandable.
Well, Flock was certainly playing Iran just up the street, another mile. But that was crazy. It was a fun gig. We played for a few hours. Then we went to Toronto and saw that people in Canada had been using Obsession as the theme song for fashion television. So we played this iconic theater in Massey Hall in Toronto. It was beautiful. It's where Rush made this place famous, but everybody that's anything played Massey Hall. Right. And so that became, like almost a 16-year run of really amazing gigs with that band.
That's wild. That it's like it was sort of happenstance, and then what was supposed to be maybe a couple turns into 16 years, which is fabulous. I mean, I have to ask. It's like, when you guys parted, because the story goes, by the way, Animotion and A Flock of Seagulls will be touring again with each other this summer, and you've done that before. So there's probably no bad blood, I would imagine, between you and the band, obviously.
No, man, they're family to me. They really are. And it was a tough decision. We can get into that part if you want, but when I started playing with A Flock of Seagulls, I did a couple of gigs with both bands, and Mike Score, the singer of Flock, said, "It almost looks like I have just hired guns in my band. It kind of cheapens the brand a little bit if I have my guys playing in multiple bands. It looks like, we're less than." So I really had to make a decision. And it really was so fortuitous that Animotion ended up finding that original drummer 30 years later, Jim Blair. He's up in the mountains up in Arizona, and he just playing jazz gigs at that point. And so they got him together, and he's been doing the gigs. He and I totally hit it off too. He jokingly keeps nudging me, and he said, "Dude, if you ever want your gig back, it's yours." So because he loves his peace up in the mountains, which I get too,
No,
but
you totally get that. Absolutely.
yeah, no, when we get out with Animotion and Flock together on the same bill, it's honestly like a family reunion. It really is, man. I adore them and love them, and I'm excited that we both get to get out, play, and do what we love.
One of the tours, we're going to get into the cruise in a second, but CJ, if you got photo number 3, this is actually the first date that's been released so far on Lost 80s Live. Go to the website, lostadieslive.com. The tour's been going on for the last several years, and it's been a lot of the same people, which has been a cool thing, and then they add on to it. In this first gig, look at the list. Flock, Wang Chung, English Beat, Men Without Hats, Missing Persons, Stacy Q, Animotion, My Boys from Dramarama, Tommy Two-Tone, Musical Youth. That's a fun night of music. Everybody gets a little piece of the pie. Everybody has a good time. I would say the only drawback as a musician, and I know you'll be honest about this, it's like sometimes you're probably playing at least the same 3 songs, and then maybe you rotate 3 more, on occasion. So you go from a Flock, you're going to play I Ran, Space Age Love Song, and Photograph. If I had a photograph of you, and then the other 3,
yeah, they had a couple of other hits that were in that top 50 probably. The More You Live, The More You Love was another one. Telecommunication was another single that was not as huge, but the 80s fans seem to know it. So we really end up playing it. Fortunately, this is the 20th year of Lost 80s Live. And so they brought us back again. I think it's a great opportunity if we keep getting these headline spots, and I'm not so sure that we're worthy of it because I love these other bands, and for me, I want to see them get as many opportunities to play all the stuff they can.
Oh, sure.
When we've done the gigs for that tour, we typically get to play 7 or 8 tunes, and so we'll do all those hits. We'll play some of the somewhat obscure tunes. Some of them, it's just they had a song called Transfer Affection that was a fan favorite. We do that one sometimes. And, I mentioned to you offline, the interesting thing about the new stuff, and we can talk about it more later, is there's this orchestral part that kind of goes along with it that they've added to, that we kind of bring that into this live show too.
I wanted to ask that, how you're going to recapture this. And for people who don't know, I want you to pay attention to photo number 10, CJ. This is a new release by A Flock of Seagulls called String Theory. It came out over the summer, and it's a unique concept. It's the second time the band has done this, working with the Slovenian Symphonic Film Orchestra. And it creates just this huge wall of beautiful sound, and it brings just another level, I think, to what Mike Score and the guys have been doing for so long. So, I mean, that was the thing I was kind of curious about. And we're gonna take a clip from the album in just a couple minutes so people can get an idea and really gravitate to the song. But to recapture that live, that's got to be part of the challenge, because you want to take what happened in that session and kind of say, okay, how do we reproduce this on our tour?
Right. The way that we do it, we don't bring a 60-piece orchestra out with us, but no. From the behind the scenes stuff, and not a lot of people don't really get to know some of what we do. But I will tell you, the thing that I love about this band is that everything you see that we're playing live. There's not this huge sequence of backing tracks. Some bands will hit play on a laptop and they'll come out and they'll do their thing.
Right.
It's great for people that want to hear it exactly like the record, but to me, it's kind of like karaoke, right? And I love the fact that Mike Score wants to do this thing as live as we possibly can. So he also wants us to sound as close to the original stuff. So on my drum kit, I've got a whole series. I use an acoustic drum set, just like you'll see in any rock show. Right. But I've got triggers on all the drums that blend these original sounds from back in the 80s. So I have the identical sounds that they used for the snare on I Ran, and the exact same tom sounds that they used for Space Age Love Song. I have triggers on all the drums, and I've got an electronic roll-in pad that has samples of the stuff. So things like the intro for Wishing, I had a photograph of you, has a kind of this industrial, like, and that thing starts the song. So I'll hit it and I'll start it, and then it cuts off right when we start playing. So people get the reference of the song. They'll hear all these elements of those sounds that they recognize, but they still see a band playing all this stuff live. So for the orchestral stuff, I'll have an intro that has the huge symphonic part that on the strings and beautiful, orchestral sounds.
Right.
And then it'll blend into intros on our songs. And so we get the sounds that people are familiar with on the new record. So you mentioned String Theory. Ascension came out about a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
That one really had all of those songs that people love, everything from Telecommunication and Space Age Love Song, Iran, with the Philharmonic. And so it is incredible. You talked about this warm bed and how full those songs were. I couldn't believe how huge those songs sounded. If you like to drive fast, my favorite thing to do. I love this, man.
I love this advice coming.
You grab Ascension, the last record that just came out, and not String Theory, but Ascension, the one that has Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Go crank their orchestral version of Iran. Pull out of the driveway as you get the whole lead up, and then once you hit the highway, I want you to just punch it. Right when you get to the chorus, it's so huge sounding, and I get goosebumps. So I didn't perform anything on that, right? They took the original band, they got them together, and they played their parts along with the Philharmonic. Mm-hmm. But it's so crazy to get to do these songs now with that addition of those sounds. It's huge, right? It sounds like cinematic.
Well, we're here with Kevin Rankin here on the A Game. We're talking all about it. CJ, could you get the video ready for us? This is the perfect time to be playing it. This is from the new album that came out over the summer. You're going to get a listen to it, and I think you're going to enjoy what's going on here with the orchestra. It's A Flock of Seagulls. Say You Love Me here on the A Game.
Come on, say you do. Say you
Talk about getting the full effect of the orchestra on that song. That is just beautiful. And
Yeah.
the crazy thing about this is, and I'm going to say this as somebody who's been in radio, I'm like going, hello, radio, figure this out. This sounds like it should be on the air. It's something that would pop out of the speakers kind of thing. I mean, bravo to Mike Score for what Kevin, he did an incredible job with that. Just beautiful stuff.
It's cool to hear it again, in this context, because he wrote the song 30 years ago with the band, and they released it just on an old record.
Mm-hmm.
But to hear it again with the orchestra and to hear, even the video, I mean, it's so well done, and there are elements of it that I see every time we watch it again. I see different parts, and yeah, man, I pinch myself getting to do this gig. It's so cool.
And I know Mike's not here to defend himself on this, and this is not a diss. Mike, if you see this, this is actually a compliment to you. I almost feel like he's never gotten enough respect as a vocalist because of when he was playing in the 80s, he got more attention for his hair than he did as a band.
Sure.
And now you hear him now and you sit there and go, give the man his props, for God's sake,
Remarkable songwriter. I mean, that's the thing. The dude won a Grammy, so
he got some respect, but not enough.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the Grammy was for an instrumental, not no vocals on it, so maybe that's saying something. But no, I mean, the hair thing, of course, the 80s, a lot of it was aesthetic, right? And which is why he doesn't have anymore. He just wanted to no, I'm just kidding.
Hey, look, he's got the same problem I have. And look, we're talking about it. Hey, CJ, give me photo number 8. Let's go back.
All the cool guys wear your hair.
There we go. And there's so many people that did have that do in the 80s. Right. And Mike had an influence on that. There's no question.
Huge. Yeah. Every gig, without question, man, people come up and say, where's your hair? And he's got a really good response every time. It's always something different.
I'm glad to hear he's got a good sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what do you do, right? If you're going to get pissed about it, I mean, it's part of humanity, right? It's what we do. For me, it gets thin, and I'm trying to do crazy stuff with it just while I have it, but
I've been there. I've been there. You do so many different things. Just like, okay, I'm going to pull it forward. I'm going to push it this way. I'm going to do that. You're going to reach a point. Trust me, you'll reach a point and be like, fuck this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I'm, it's close. In fact, I've been purple forever. Right. And I just went blonde for the first time, but it's funny that my kids are both bright redheads, right? And, they're ginger.
How'd that happen?
Yeah, well, anyway, the mailman never watches these things. So, but when they got up in school, of course, man, stupid bullies, guys that are ignorant, we were bullying them. They gave them grief for having red hair. Right. And I told them, you are going to love it when you get older. Once you get out of school, it's great to be different. So I started going nuts with my hair, man. I do purple. I do like unicorn colors, purple and pink, and whatever unicorn colors are. The Starbucks Frappuccino colors. And I wanted them to know that it's more about an identity that you can call your own, and everybody's gonna love it once they get older, which they do. My kids are out of high school now, and they love it. Every girl loves to touch their hair. But,
bravo to them.
Yeah.
Kevin Rankin here from A Flock of Seagulls on the A Game. There's another side to Kevin's life, and that's photo number 4, CJ. He is over 200 episodes into this. All Access Live with Kevin Rankin is a very cool podcast. His guests, they have run the gamut. We're going to talk about some of them a little later on. But I got to ask, because you started this right around when the pandemic started. Was the pandemic kind of the thing where you're sitting there going, I needed something to do to stay sane kind of
Totally.
Feeling?
Absolutely. Yeah. It started on Facebook Live. Our guitarist lives in Toronto. Bass player's in San Diego. Mike lives in Liverpool.
Right. And
the guitarist was trapped up there at the beginning of the pandemic. So we did a gig the last week of February when they didn't even have a name for the COVID thing yet, and then everybody stayed home for a little bit. So we get to March, we get into April. In April, we started doing a Facebook Live conversation where fans and friends of the band would chime in, and they'd chat about gigs they were expecting to see that summer. And our guitarist said, man, what are we going to do? This thing might go 3 or 4 more weeks.
Right.
In May.
Yeah, exactly.
So
now here we are in 2022.
I know it's a little insane, but if you know Jennifer Batten, right? She's in all the big iconic Michael Jackson videos, the big platinum blonde mohawk. She's a dear friend. She lives here in Portland, and we play a lot of music together. She watched some of the interplay happening on those chats, and she said, it's a great opportunity for you to have conversations with people. You should turn it into a podcast.
Right.
And I'm like, man, everybody, including Rob Akampora's got a podcast. I don't what do I have to say that
look, we all jumped on the bandwagon.
Right.
Let's be honest about it.
So I told her, I said, you know what, if you do one with me, maybe I'll consider it. Right.
Okay.
And we did it. And it was a great opportunity for me to start talking to guys that we were supposed to tour with that summer.
Right.
So all the bands from the Lost 80s that we've been traveling with, Men Without Hats and Wang Chung and Dramarama, your friends, and
John,
all these.
John and Peter, absolutely, yeah.
I love those guys, man.
Yeah, you have to understand, as somebody who did 90s radio with alternative on the Jersey Shore, Dramarama was one of our staple bands. They have been so good to me over the years. I mean, I have nothing but great love for every member of the band. They're good people.
A Stone Pony, man. I mean, that's their home away from home. I know. So so I was just chatting with all these guys. I'd bring in onto the show, and then I started upping the production of the show and kind of widening it, because of what I love to do is I get one opportunity that some people might not get. When I'm on tour, I do that same thing. I'm out doing Facebook Live at almost every show.
Yeah.
I'll walk them through and I'll show them the backstage, and I'll show them drum kit set up, or maybe we'll look at catering, or they might see how opulent or how totally run down the backstage might be.
The whole thing is, yes.
And, it's fun from somebody that really may want to play music and never gets a chance to see that. For me, it was a great opportunity for my kids to stay with me on the road. They could see, oh, that's cool. Dad got this drum set for that show, or look at this venue. And then it started to grow. And I thought, well, if and when we ever get out of the pandemic, I'd love to be able to do this live. So we just hang backstage, and there are backstage conversations just like you and I are having right now. Mm-hmm. And what was surprising is that people that go to see a rock show, they might see bands from the 80s. They see everything the band presents to them on stage, but they don't see what's going on in that person's life outside.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
You worked radio, musicians. Off camera or off stage, they're dealing with the same stuff that everybody on the planet has, right? They've got to find a dog sitter. They've got issues with taxes. They have relationship things that break up. Their wash machine breaks, whatever, right? And so when they are willing to talk about that real stuff, I feel like it humanizes them. It makes us all connected a lot more. Everybody can commiserate with the fact that not a person on the planet hasn't been affected by the pandemic.
That's true.
And it really, for me, it became cathartic. It was a difficult thing because when I started seeing that the pain that people had, musicians had, almost every musician I know has had their position in a band be their identity.
Yeah, and you're making a really good point here, Kevin, because I think bands, even if they're on the highest of high levels, you're still taking the life beat away from them that they know, and the adjustment mentally, emotionally, and I'm taking the financial out of the equation, just the mental, the emotional part of it. It almost has to feel like, for most, and I'm not going to say you in this case, I can't speak for you, is that there's this lost feeling. I'm like, well, what do I do? How do I adjust? I mean, I may have family, I may have friends, but the thing that makes me, the passion inside me, now what do I do?
Oh man, you nailed it, and you can speak for me because that was certainly me. I feel like I have great opportunities outside of the stage that I try to find some fulfillment with. But as I talked to my friends in these podcasts, I started to take on just a portion of their weight. So as they talked about how it affected them emotionally or financially, all these things started to pile up right here on this shoulder, right? So after 40 or 50, I started really taking on a lot of the emotional baggage that some of them had. Now that's an issue for me to have really had an opportunity to practice and work on boundaries. But I really appreciated the fact that these guests would be so vulnerable with me.
Yeah.
Part of it is that I want to make sure that the conversations we have make it feel like there's no camera in front of their face, or they're not having
you hit it on the
watch.
head. That's the way it should be. It should be just like, hey, look, if you're watching right now, you're watching two guys who may not know each other, but we're getting along, we're shooting the shit and just having a good conversation. Wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah. It changed my life, to be honest with you. Some of these episodes, and I'm sure you feel like this too. Sometimes you'll walk away with this euphoric feeling, like it's an adrenaline rush. It
really is. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Sometimes it's emotionally exhausting, right? Because what you're doing right now, you're a wonderful broadcaster. You listen really well. As you start to listen to people talk about their feelings and what they're going through, your mind constantly goes to things that you want to ask them that are compelling, and also show that you're part of this conversation, you're being present. And when you do that for 45 minutes, hour and a half,
Whatever the case may be.
sometimes, oh my God, I'll walk away from there thinking, I feel like I just ran a marathon, in a huge way.
And you're
It's
doing
just,
something right. You're absolutely doing something right, because that's the feeling you should have. I agree with that.
yeah. And it's awesome. Sometimes it's, it's a beautiful thing. You feel like you made a difference.
I got to ask on one, because
Yeah.
you had the unique and unfortunate honor, best way of putting it. And I'm going to preface this by saying there are two interviewers who had the last two interviews with the late Tony Katane. One of them is Dave LaGreca from Busted Open on Sirius XM, who is a very talented morning guy talking wrestling with Bully Ray Dudley. You were the other one.
Yeah.
Have you looked back on that interview at all and kind of digest, like, you had no idea Tony was going to be gone shortly after that interview?
No, man. Yeah, I've looked at it a lot because there was a connection that happened in the interview that we did that spilled into the next day's interview and then beyond. There were a couple of things about the interview. Number one, I don't go into any interview with any preconceived conversation, right? I just want to let things flow.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions that I asked people depending on what the vibe is like in the conversation. And I had asked her many years down the road, Tony, when you look back on your life and you think, you're at the end of your days and you're looking at the things that you were most proud of, what you want people to remember you for. And I remember she laughed and she said, "Oh my God, I really hope these aren't the end of my days. I hope I get," and, she talked about wanting to have been known as a great mom. She developed a newfound connection with her daughters that was really important to her. She was very close to her daughters, very close to her dad. And a lot of that developed through the pandemic.
Right.
I also asked her, as they make the story about your life, who is it that's going to play the character of Tony Katane? Julie's her real name. I said, who's going to play Julie Katane in this movie? And she said, Christina Applegate. We met on the story, the set of Married with Children.
Right.
And she plays this, stereotypical bimbo, in this household that, she's this attractive gal who's, all, beauty and no brains. And she said, I can relate, right? Because I was this iconic, like a video star who was, big busted and, sprawled out on Jaguars. And it was all about my beauty and not about any kind of intellect that I might have. And so we shared a couple of things on camera and off camera that were special to her. Then the next day I did an interview with Rudy Sarzo, who she had been with
Quiet Riot. Yeah.
One of Quiet Riot and Whitesnake. Right. And so the entire duration of his time in Whitesnake, she was with David Coverdale and they toured together. So Rudy would work on lines with her as she would do her auditions. And she was on, Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. She was on Seinfeld. Seinfeld. She was, Seinfeld's girlfriend on some episodes. And so she'd be working on these lines and Rudy would help her with the lines. So while my interview was going on with Rudy, she just jumped in. So it's like she jumped into the conversation and she didn't know that everybody could see her. She thought by hitting the link again that she could just go and watch Rudy and I talk. So as we're talking, Rudy says, Tony, is that you? And she said, oh my gosh, you can see me? And from that point, they opened up about crazy stuff on that interview. They talked about stuff that I could not believe they let public. Wow. And it was really special. There were some really heartwarming and difficult moments where we talked about loss, that I asked Rudy, he had gone, and I don't know if you were going to ask about him, but he was on the bus when Randy Rhoads was in the band, crashed into the bus in the airplane and died. He and Randy were like brothers. It wasn't just bandmates. They were so close. Yeah. And then he lost Ronnie James Dio when he was in Ronnie's band. Then he lost Kevin DeBrow and Frankie Benali from Quiet Riot. Just these endless losses that he had. And I asked him, what was this? I mean, how did you overcome this emotional baggage? And he said, well, I quit with Randy. I just couldn't do it. And I quit the business entirely at the height of Ozzy Osbourne's biggest tour. And I said, and what brought you back? And he said, I never usually talk about this in public. But he did. He said, I found the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he said, for me, I needed to find some sort of higher power outside myself that could help me find the light. And as he did this, Tawny said, Rudy, I'm also working in this program right now. I'm working a program of recovery. And I said, as a matter of fact, you guys keep talking and I got a meeting in about 20 minutes myself. I got to jump off. And so we shared meetings together. And, it's important to just honor anonymity in that program of recovery.
Yes.
But the fact that they were very vocal about it, and that I am as well, I felt this commiseration, between them. And Tawny and I shared a lot of both meetings and time late at night where she'd be working through her recovery stuff and text me 4:00 in the morning. Are you up? And we'd talk about the stuff that she was facing. Her father passed away just prior to her death.
Oh, wow.
And it really affected her. No doubt that it was a big contributing factor to the loss. But when I go back and I look at those moments that she was so willing to be vulnerable about,
right,
and really those statements that she made, I felt truly grateful that I had the experience with her. As much as it was a gut punch to find out about her loss, I'm so grateful to get to know who she really was, and not to look at see the TMZ reports and think, oh, another celebrity lost, right? But I could actually know that this is a beautiful hearted woman who struggled like everybody else did. And I was grateful to get to know the beautiful side of her.
And if you want to find out more about his podcast, just sign up on the YouTube channel. There's some great stuff out there. And we just gave you 2 great examples of ones to check out. It is All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. Kevin's here on the A Game. Random Shots time. This is where I admit I am a stalker on your social media. And I come up with some bizarre questions, but some of them are going to be kind of obvious. Some of them kind of not. But you as a drummer had to go here to start. Look, there's been so many great drummers of all time. I pretty much know that the Mount Rushmore of drummers, Neil Peart's on it. The question is, who else is on it in your book?
John Bonham, Zeppelin, without a doubt. If you get 4 guys, it's one thing that I try not to do is say that one guy's better than another one in any respect, right? What artist is a better painter or better actor? I think Bonham was the first guy to really make me feel. At an early age, Tommy Lee was the reason I started playing.
There was the influence.
I mean, in a big way. I mean, but it was more about when I saw Tommy Lee playing. I was playing clarinet, and and so I was in junior high, and I had an uncle who was a jazz drummer in Chicago, and I went out to see him.
Oh, wow, okay.
Wicked drummer, and his son Jim Ferrolo, my cousin, was also a great rock drummer and a guitarist, and they had this big huge set with rototoms, and it was a very Alex Van Halen drum set. But that summer I saw the first Motley Crue videos, and I saw how dangerous they were, and I realized there is no way I'm getting the chicks that dude gets playing clarinet.
So true.
I hate to admit it, but that's it, man. That's what got me, and it was more just the power and the energy and the exciting part of rock, and so, the aesthetic, it got me, but the feeling, you listen to like a Tommy Lee and it's an undeniable sound. John Bonham for me made you feel every element of a Zeppelin tune.
Well said.
And Neil Peart is, my son is a rabid Neil Peart fan. It's God. Neil is God to him. Rush is his band. And for me, I told him there's a cerebral part of Neil's playing that, of course, I mean, they call him the professor for a reason, right? But I don't feel it by listening to Neil play. I feel it when I read Neil's words. I mean, Neil wrote the lyrics, right, for all the songs, and I feel it more knowing the message behind their music. When I have to really think about the orchestration in one of those songs, it defeats the purpose for me. I love music moving me and making me feel, and so Bonham did that for me. Drummers, there are guys like Steve Gadd, that's so recorded 1 million records, and like the chops guys, like the Dave Weckels and the Vinnie Colaiutas, these guys that are influential in so many ways. But modern guys, Todd Zuckerman from Styx is one of the most incredible drummers you see on the planet, and he can do it all. And I've had Kenny Aronoff on the show, and Kenny is, he's everybody's favorite drummer in a lot of ways. You listen to 1 million songs, and there's Kenny on the drums, and so he makes you feel without knowing who he is. Or most people don't know him by name, but then you'll listen to 100 different songs on the radio, and the parts that were really sticking out, like Jack and Diane from John Mellencamp, you're like, oh, I love that drum part. Well, that's Kenny Aronoff, so those are the guys.
Yeah, and it's funny because I would have think Kenny is one of those guys. Because my second question is most underrated drummers. Kenny has to go in that category because he's very underrated in what he does.
Well, if you watch the episode I did with him, he will tell you he's been on over 3,000 gold, platinum, and diamond records.
Which is
so
amazing.
Incredible. So I don't know how underrated he is. Somebody's finding out about him, but yeah,
true. But the average person, unfortunately, probably doesn't know that, Kev. That's the sad.
Yeah, no, and you can tell he's got a chip on his shoulder about that. When you ask him, because he had, when we did the episode, he had all his gold records behind. I thought they were gold, they were diamond, but he said. I said, oh, this is great. You brought me into the room where you've got your gold records behind. He said, dude, I said, oh, that's right. Because you've got like 3,000 records you played on. He goes, 3,000 that are gold, platinum, and diamond.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Thank
and
you.
You could tell he's got to kind of clarify that stuff.
Right.
I think it would be hard not to, right? If you've made that much of an impact on the entire industry, without his contribution, music would be completely different. And so really, if you think about the Mount Rushmore, I guess, whenever you think about somebody that has that much of an impact on music in a genre or in a generation, without a doubt, it's undeniable. You can't take him off the mountain, right? He's definitely up there.
Well said. Well said. Random shots with Kevin Rankin. Okay, better John Cusack movie. Say Anything or Better Off Dead?
Oh, Better Off Dead in a heartbeat. It's one of my favorite movies all time.
I had a feeling because I have to go to photo number 12 because you have the distinct honor of not having just this lady, Amanda Wiss, who is on your podcast. You've also had Diane Franklin on your podcast. So you've had two of the major pieces of that movie. That must have been, as a fan, a thrill for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's actually a segment out there with me and Curtis Armstrong out there too. So I had the trifecta, almost the entire group. No John Cusack yet, but Diane and Amanda both, I would consider great friends of mine. And that is part of the benefit of getting to do what we do is that, the whole 80s sort of, it's more than a genre. It's a culture. Right. And so, I was a huge fan of the movie long before ever getting to meet them. I probably watched it 100 times, in the 8th and 9th grade years of my my childhood.
Anybody who doesn't know, I want my $2.
There you go.
See this movie.
That's right. Yeah, it's genius. I mean, Say Anything is it's a great relationship movie, right? But Better Off Dead is one of the greatest movies of all time.
That's saying something. And again, there are so many lines. And Curtis Armstrong, talking about the snow.
Oh, yeah. He talks about that entire segment on the little segment of the little podcast. If you go to accesskevin.com, that's an easier way to find all of my show. And so, there's, if, you can search by Better Off Dead on my channel and you can see those. But he talks about the behind the scenes, because I said, what are some things that people want to know about Better Off Dead that they'd be surprised? And so he talks about what that snow consisted of and some other segments. I won't ruin it for you, but there's craziness out there, man.
Good stuff. All right. And this ties to your podcast again. Favorite MTV VJ growing up, because you've interviewed 3 of them.
I have.
Yeah, you've had Alan Hunter, you've had Dave Kendall, 120 minutes. You've had Downtown Julie Brown. You're up on me. You've had 3, I've had 1. And the only reason I had my 1, God bless you, Matt Pinfield, my old boss on radio. That's how.
Oh, really? Yeah. So Matt's amazing, and I would love to talk to him. I didn't actually have Dave, but I had Ricky Rackman.
Okay, my mistake. I thought you had Dave. Okay.
No, that and I would love to as well. Martha Quinn was an on and off opportunity. Martha and I met a bunch of times. She is adorable. I love her. And if I had to say I had a favorite back in the day, I wouldn't have said it, because having gotten to know them now,
right?
One of my favorite people on the planet, not just in radio and MTV or anything else, is Downtown Julie Brown. That woman is a goddess. I freaking love her.
Nice to hear. She seems that genuine, that there's no facade going on with her, which is great to hear.
Oh man, she's as real as it gets. And honestly, Alan Hunter too. We've spent so many really wonderful experiences together in Cancun and the Dominican Republic. I was
going to say that explains why you're so comfortable with you. I was watching that one and I'm like, oh, these two just so comfortable between, and you felt that off the interview when I watched it. Definitely felt that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think I watched them interact with other people too. When we were in Cancun in October, There were people that were lined up to come and take pictures with him. And I love that Alan puts everybody at ease. You know, they'll come up and it's funny, people will be out of breath, you know, like, oh my gosh, I was such a big fan. He said, take a breath. It's all cool.
It's all good.
We all wash our underwear the same way or whatever. And he's got great energy and he does make everybody feel comfortable. He's got good boundaries too. You know, somebody crosses a line and you can see the people that are out to be, you know, they're out for something more than just a friendly picture.
Yeah.
And he's great about shutting that down. And I wish I had that because he does it in a way that is not off-putting. He is not an asshole. He'll say that he can be one, but man, I love that guy too. Martha Quinn, I've had a few times to sit down with her and she's real as real can get. I think all of those VJs, and Matt would probably say the same thing. They had a reality check when MTV sort of, you know, made a turn in the different generations.
Yes.
When MTV first started out, right, you had JJ Jackson and Nina Blackwood and Ellen Hunter and Martha Quinn. Those days, everybody discovered something completely new. Budgets were low. You know, they talk about how right off camera, things were falling apart. You know, the set was just, they had this old ratty couch and these guys, you know, were basically living in the slums in New York. And then the network blew up. And then, you know, times change. MTV is no longer a channel just for music videos. And, you know, and it evolved over time and it became a reality TV sort of network. And I'm grateful to have grown up in that generation that discovered MTV. I mean, honestly, if it weren't for MTV, would my band even be playing right now? Probably not.
Yeah, that's a great point. A Flock of Seagulls really took advantage of the video generation at the beginning. And that was 3 straight top 30 hits in a row. And each video brought the popularity of their music more than radio, I think.
Right. Yeah.
All right. This one I think I know the answer to, but I had to bring it up because they're both from the same era. Growing up, Heather Locklear or Heather Thomas?
Okay. Well, I just interviewed Heather Thomas 2 weeks ago.
As a matter of fact, give me photo number 7, CJ.
There we go.
I could say just about every guy I knew growing up probably had this photo, the girl from the Fall Guy.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I will, in full disclosure, man, you get 100% honesty with me. I had that poster, but because of the Tommy Lee connection, Heather Locklear was my girl.
Well, that makes sense because you were worshiping Tommy Lee, so I get it.
I was like, okay, if I put myself in Tommy's place, would I have Heather Locklear, right? So, but I've never had the opportunity to meet Heather Locklear. The conversation I had with Heather Thomas was awesome. That woman.
How did that come about? I mean, you didn't know Heather Thomas, did you?
I didn't know. Okay. No. Yeah. I mean, it's cool that there are different circles and pockets and we meet a lot of different people, but there is a podcaster, a broadcaster who moved from New York over to Illinois, Brad Berkowitz. And Brad Berkowitz is, he's a military hero. This guy's got a story that's nuts, and you would think that he's like some mafia boss. You know, he's forget about it. His big tag.
Forget about it.
He's got all of those lines down, but he's a very prolific podcaster. I mean, the guy's has it seems like as many interviews as I do with wonderful guests, and he did Heather Thomas's interview. And the thing that I loved about it was that she's an activist for a lot of great causes. Of course, she was known for this bikini poster, right? And everybody knew that
it was one of the biggest selling posters of the decade. I mean,
it's true. Yeah. And I asked her about that. Like, where are the royalties? And are you getting these things? And she said, no, didn't get a damn thing from that. But recognition.
Yeah.
You know, so she, like Tawny, really wanted to be recognized for having made contributions beyond just the aesthetic part.
Right. It was more about the mental, emotional, and what she was giving, from her soul as opposed to what was being presented physically.
Yeah. So regardless of anybody's political stance, one thing that I loved about it, she started a nonprofit called, I'll remember in a second, but I'll tell you the premise behind it was completely independent, whether you're the Republican, Democrat, independent. She was making sure that people were registered to vote, that they hadn't been removed from voting capabilities. So a lot of times people's voting privileges have been removed without them knowing it. Yeah. So she started this organization where they can just go through, make sure that they're registered to vote. If they've somehow been removed, that they can go ahead and sign up. So it's a civic duty for us to contribute and make our vote made. And I love the fact that she did this in a way that was not alienating any particular party, and it wasn't, she's got her own political stance for sure. But I love the fact that she really wanted people to exercise their civic duty. And so anybody that's out there that's contributing to their community, I thought, man, I love her story. And so that's why I asked Brad. I said, man, hook me up with Heather. I really want to focus on that. And surprisingly, man, she was all that and more. It was really cool.
Good stuff. Now I'm glad to hear that. 2 more questions in random shots. One of them playing into Portland. Now, one thing about Portland, there's 2 major professional sports. There's the Trailblazers and there's the soccer team, the Timber. Are you following either one of them, or do you have a preference?
This year?
This year. Hey, look, the fact that Portland just traded their second best player and they've won 4 in a row, I'm going, what just happened?
Yeah, you know,
now you win 4 in a row. What?
In a lot of ways, sports doesn't make any sense, right? When that stuff happens.
Yes.
I'm a huge NFL fan. That's my thing. The Seahawks are my favorite team.
Being in Portland, it had to be the Seahawks.
I got second row season tickets, man. I've been a Hawks fan with my seats for 20 years now. And, you know, I've been a Blazers fan for a long time.
Yeah.
It was tough to lose CJ McCollum, but I will tell you, admittedly, the Timbers are a huge thing here. It's awesome to go someplace and find out about.
People who don't know, this is the second highest drawing team in Major League Soccer, next to the Seattle Sounders. For whatever reason, the Pacific Northwest has embraced professional soccer in a way that the rest of the country hasn't.
It's true, and honestly, they don't embrace anything else. I mean, the Seahawks have, you know, but really, it's been everything they've been trying to do to get a professional baseball team in Portland, and it's not going to happen as much as they keep trying. And you know, so the Seattle community is just, they finally got a pro NHL team, right? So they've got but I've only been to one Timbers game live. I love what they brought. I love that they brought the culture here. But I'll tell you something about the Blazers that I love. Okay, we're a small town market, right? People here, the Blazers are what people have besides the Timbers. They just love this team. Traveling over the last several years, I had some experiences that blew my mind. And so thank God at least this point, they still have Damian Lillard. A few years ago, we played a show in Mazatlan. These guys from the radio station came to pick me up. And they said, oh, you're from Seattle. I said, no, I'm actually, we're from Portland, you know, but and they go, oh, the Blazers. And I said, oh, yeah, you know the Blazers? And they said, Damian Lillard's greatest player in the league. And I said, really? Like, not LeBron, not, you know, and
they said, don't get me wrong, great player, but not the first name that would come to mind
for most people, right? But outside the US, we went with the 80s in the Sand event where all these 80s bands played in the Dominican Republic. The band New Shoes, love them to death, John and Valerie.
I can't wait, and point of no return.
Oh my God. And what they did, everywhere they tour, they find a charity to support. And so there's an organization called Pack for a Purpose. They'll find underprivileged schools that need school supplies, and they'll get everybody that goes along on these trips to contribute. So they'll bring spirals and notebooks and pens, and these kids like weep when you give them ballpoint pens. They're so excited about having this stuff. We went out to one of the schools one of the years. The guy that put this event together, Steve Robinson, put a really cool thing together to bring all these people together that have all the 80s artists, the bands that perform all week long. They've got all those people from MTV. They've got actors and actresses, but all the patrons, including the artists, would go to help the underprivileged schools. We went to this school. There was one K through 12 school, dirt floor, no electricity. Everybody from that school was in the same one room school with a teacher in different corners. So they teach like K through 3. But all the kids from the school had Lillard jerseys on. And I was asking the teachers, what the heck? Where are these coming from? And they said, he sends them all the time. At the end of the season, he'll send us a booklet. Doesn't say anything about it, doesn't issue a press release. He just knows that these kids who've lost everything in hurricanes, you know, and the economy is tough, they at least have something that they can feel proud of. And I thought, I love this dude forever. If we lose him from Portland, it'll be a sad thing, not just because of the contribution he made to the team,
but because of what we just talked about.
What he brings to the communities, man. I love it.
That's a great story. I never knew that about Damian Lillard. Oh my God. All the more reason to, if Portland does anything in the offseason, just center the team around him and just, you know, but hell of a story that they've won 4 in a row right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, this may be the best one, I think, to wrap up random shots. And now this is going to be testing your knowledge as far as pop culture is concerned. from a 90s movie. The line in the movie is, "Yo, flock of seagulls. You know why we're here?" He's already nodding. I think I'm going to get burned on this. What movie am I talking about?
The Wedding Singer.
No, I got
Wait, hold on. Flock of Seagulls.
90s movie, all-star cast, resurrected a comeback for one of the actors.
Well, oh yeah, I mean Pulp Fiction. But
I'm going with that.
You know why we're here? Yeah, so it just precedes Samuel Jackson's like famous line of his biblical line. Yes.
No, you know it. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So yeah, because there is the you like the Flock of Seagulls? Yeah, but no, obviously you do. That's the Wedding Singer.
Yes, it is.
Oh, we hear it.
I think you knew the Wedding Singer. I figured maybe I can get you on Pulp Fiction, but I'm like, couldn't get
yeah.
I was like, congratulations, you're still in the band for knowing that. You realize
Sam Jackson. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think we need Sam at one of our shows to come and introduce us, you know? So.
Actually, I do know one actor who's been on my podcast, Peter Honorati. I hope you are watching. Mumford from SWAT, who plays Jack's father on This Is Us on NBC. I posted, that you were coming on, and he's like, do me a favor, please ask him if he knows Mick Rossi. He's a friend of his that used to be one of Flock's managers. I know you came in only about 6 years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No, but Mick Rossi, we met some of the former managers. We did the Greek Theater a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And former management came into the Greek. If Mick's in LA, chances are he was in that room.
Yeah.
Because they had really great reminiscing. They sat down and talked about, the days in 1983, and it's cool. I mean, if Mick's the one, and I'll tell you the story. This is just, I don't mean to get so long-winded with this.
Well, this would be a perfect way to wrap up. Give us the story. This would be great.
Okay. So bucket list for me. I mean, the Greek Theater is one of the places I wanted to play forever. And we're there the night after Ringo's All-Star Band played, and the promoter came in and said, "Oh, Kevin, you're sitting in Ringo's seat. That's where he was last night." I thought, oh, this is cool. So Mike starts talking to our former managers about the first time that Flock really broke in the U.S., the US Festival, 1983. They were playing in Paris the night before. They take the Concorde to LA, like overnight. They get in the morning. They go right to the hotel. They drop their stuff in their rooms. They meet on the roof where a helicopter picks them up, flies them over the crowd to the US Festival. And as they land backstage, and they have a ramp that brings them up, there's Eddie Van Halen waiting at the top of the ramp to tell Mike, "Dude, I'm such a huge fan of your band." And Mike was not a rock guy, right? So Mike's like, "Who's this dude? Who's this?"
Oh no! Oh my God!
Yeah, but I think apparently, Eddie really liked the unique stylings of Paul Reynolds, the guitarist in the band. And Paul was so young, right? At that point, he was like 16 years old, and he wrote, those parts. And for these guitar virtuosos, the Eddie Van Halens of the world, where they can play really fast, but this appreciation for style, that's really amazing to me. And as I've been in the band longer, I see more and more of this amazing influence that the guitars had on all these other bands from that era. Like there were bands that were starting to take off, the Depeche Modes and the like at that time, but they weren't so focused on guitar tones. And that was one thing that Flock was really, sort of a seminal beginning for them. But I love the idea of jet setting from Paris through the Concorde to the hotel to the US Festival, and there's Eddie Van Halen getting snubbed by our singer.
That is a great. I'm glad you got that in. That was worth it. That's a great story. By the way, fans of Flock of Seagulls should know they're doing the 80s cruise March 5th through the 12th, and then you're out on the UK for about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And it will be, once again, I'm going to post photo number 3, CJ, so people keep their eyes open for it. It is Lost 80s Live. This is still the first date that's been announced in the Denver area on August 13th. The lineup as of right now: Flock of Seagulls, Wang Chung, English Beat, Men Without Hats, Missing Persons, Stacy Q, Animotion, Dramarama, Hello John Easdale, Tommy Two-Tone, and Musical Youth. Sometimes they change the lineup a little bit, so go to the website lost80slive.com. When more dates come in, you'll find out about them. That's Kevin, right. Thank you so much. The podcast is All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. So many great guests. Find it and get caught up on the 200 plus episodes that he has out there. My friend, I hope I bump into you at some point this summer, my friend.
I hope so too. Yeah, we'll be out there. Rob, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. That's a wrap for the A Game tonight. I'm Rob Akampora. Check in with you next week and have a great weekend ahead. Take care.
Thanks. Peace.